The new Black Templars have taken a grand tournament in some decent style recently. Let's take a look at the most successful crusade that Helbrecht and Grimoldus have launched this year. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking Templars, and I thought we'd focus on this Black Templar list that's won the first grand tournament for them since the new book was released. I feel it's really quite interesting theory crafting some of the best things that you can put together from a book, but when you see lists winning grand tournaments or at least placing highly, it kind of stress tests the theory crafting to see exactly what actually does work in practice and what might come up short in reality. I must admit I do really quite like the look and feel of this army. A horde of very angry black space marines charging at the enemy, led by a couple of chaplains and Helbrecht himself, backed up by a few Redemptor dreadnoughts for some fire support and heavy lifting. I quite like the idea that you could make quite a lot of this as well just from literally getting 3 copies of the Purgation box set, painting it up and putting it on the table. I have a feeling that we might see a bit more performance from the Black Templars soon. It's only been this weekend that a lot of their miniatures went up for pre-order, so few to no people will actually have the genuine new sculpt of Helbrecht or Grimoldus. 2 very solid leaders for the black-clad Crusaders. In any case, let's talk over the list and see if we can work out a few of the obvious combos. So here we have the list, the most successful Black Templars list since the new codex so far, written and played by Kevin Roach, who used it to take first at Dabois GT, a really big 60+ person event. It certainly didn't look like it had an easy ride to get there on Best Coast pairings, having to overcome both pre-nerf Abmech and Drukhari to get to the top. Not at all bad going, particularly as both of those armies might have been playing with a fair few less points now. The list itself is organised in a single battalion detachment, and looks like it's best set up to use the Vow with a 5+ invul save, and the mini transhuman ability where you can only ever wound the model on a 3+ or better. The Redemptor dreadnoughts and the Crusader Squads get an awful lot out of that, as do the Eradicators. I strongly suspect that will be the default choice, though I guess you could always potentially flex it out if you were, say, playing for Psychers, or you just thought you needed more of a melee buff. The list is led by the new Primaris versions of Grimoldus and Helbrecht, both being pretty excellent buffing characters in their own right, and Helbrecht packs a massive meaty punch in combat, as we'll hopefully be talking about in an upcoming video. Grimoldus does have the potential to be a bit of a weak link competitively. As he's a 4-model unit that has the character keyword, he does give up a big 12 points for Assassinate if you can get to him, and in general that seems like it could be quite an easy pick for the opponent, and it could lead to a lot of the game being about whether or not you can keep Grimoldus alive and keep him screened from enemy attacks. In any case though, Grimoldus' buffs really are good. He gives out a 6+ feel no pain saves to units nearby, and that can go either on the squads or on the dreadnoughts to make them even tougher. Makes everyone a little bit faster with advancing if he needs to, and he casts 2 chaplain litanies very reliably, one of them being the excellent Litany of Divine Protection, the one for the 5+ feel no pain, and he's paired that with the other really good Black Templars one, the one that allows you to cause mortal wounds on 6s with Black Templar core choices. That could pair really nicely indeed with the Crusader Squads, who throw out so many attacks that you're likely to get quite a lot of mortal wounds out of that. He can always pair that with the Canticle of Hate if he wants, just for some rerolls. Then we have Helbrecht. I'm sure his reroll 1s to hit and his full Chapter Master rerolls will be felt very nicely with the Dreadnoughts, and if while they're advancing towards the enemy he does manage to get his hands on enemy units, he hits like an absolute truck. Either a massive 7 attacks at strength 8 and damage 3, or a crazy 14, or with strength 6 and AP -3 damage 1. It doesn't matter whether you're a horde or a heavy, he's going to do some serious damage to you. Rounding out the HQ slot, there's a Primaris Chaplain on bike. He's using that Tannhauser's Bones combo. That's one that I did talk about on the channel a few weeks ago. The bones make him ridiculously hard to shift with that many wounds, as any multi-damage attacks become damage 1 attacks instead when they target him. Being a chaplain on bike with the Iron Resolve Warlord trait, that means he's up to a pretty crazy 8 wounds, and very little in the game is going to be able to kill him in a single round of combat, between that and a 6+ feel no pain. He's taken the Canticle of Hate, the one for +2 to charges, which should certainly help deliver him for a charge a long way across the board. I'm guessing that he might be used to deliver those Vanguard veterans into combat, the ones with the hefty Thunderhammer and Storm Shield punch. Rounding out the characters, in the elite slot there's a Judiciar with the Aurelian Shroud. The Judiciar does his trick of making enemy units fight last, and I believe that he's more useful than Black Templars, as I think that he can use the Devout Push stratagem to get closer to the enemy before using Temper Mortis to make sure that the enemy actually gets in range. They both say that this happened at the start of the fight phase, so I think that checks out, though please correct me if I'm wrong. Seems like a really nice combo if it does work though, as it makes his fight's last ability far more meaningful, as your opponent's not going to be able to avoid it as easily. His relic, the Aurelian Shroud, is very important as well. That one's basically an aura of a 4+ invul save to Black Templar core units, but you can only use it one turn in the game. Still though, that's going to make one or two of those Black Templar Crusader Squads just ridiculously tough to shift. You're unlikely to be able to scrape them off an objective, particularly if they're also in feel no pain range from Grimaldus too. Moving on, we come to the squads, and I must admit I was a bit uncertain about the Black Templar Crusader Squads and how much they'd actually see play. This list certainly refutes that though, as it does use 3 meaty squads of 10 of them as primary tough units to take and hold objectives and slay some enemies in combat. I guess maybe they are fractionally superior to assault intercessors in that loadout, as you don't pay quite as much for a few of the neophytes, though I kind of feel that that's slightly balanced by not being able to fight twice for 2 CP. In any case though, really good to see them working. Having a big meaty core of no less than 30 Crusaders feels just incredibly Black Templar. Out of those units, they all take the bolt pistols and chainswords. One of the Sword Brethren takes the Sword of Judgment relic. That will make that squad significantly fightier, strength 7, AP -3 and damage 3 normally, maybe strength 8 if it's next to Helbrecht. One of the other Sword Brethren takes a Pyre pistol, and one is just completely bare bones unupgraded. From there we maybe have a couple of the most scary looking units in the list. First up, a small but mighty unit of 5 Vanguard veterans, all with a Thunderhammer and Storm Shield, a pretty pricey unit at 210 points, but if they get themselves into a hard target, they're just going to absolutely demolish it. Perhaps could be a good unit for Helbrecht to cast his reroll hits on. Then maybe jump up with a Primaris Chaplain on bike for the extra charge range. With Black Templars plus that +2 inches, they should have a very reliable threat range of something like 22 inches. They could even grab Obsec in the command phase as well for 1 CP for strength of conviction. Next up we have a unit of 3 Eradicators with the heavy melter rifles. 150 points worth of anti-vehicle hatred here. I guess they could loiter out of line of sight in the deployment zone if you wanted a bit of a counterpunch anti-tank threat, or potentially go into strategic reserve alongside the unit of Servitors for just 1 CP for the pair. They're certainly very swingy for how many shots get through, but in theory for the unit with average rolling, if they're targeting something like a toughness 7 vehicle, they do a spectacular average of 15 wounds if they do happen to be within their 12-inch melter range. Those Servitors are just generally going to be nice quality of life ones to have around. They could hold down objectives out of line of sight, or do grunt work and actions like retrieve Octarius data or raising banners. And then I'm sure loitering around some of the characters, we have the 3 really big hitters, 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts with the standard Macroplasma Incinerator, Gatling Cannon and Icarus Pod. Again, they'll most certainly enjoy Helbrecht's rerolls and any that they could do for Wisdom of the Ancients, and quite similar to the Death Watch, they're a lot harder to shift than normal. They have their 5+ invul save for the Vow, and also Grimaldus' aura of 6-up Feel No Pain. Rarely a wrong choice in any Space Marine list, these just put out some nice general purpose firepower, and will generally chew through whatever you point them at, given enough time. Overall, I must say I really do like the look and feel of the list. It feels very Black Templar. To be honest, I was kind of expecting people to build more around things like Bambets and Terminators, as I said in previous videos, which I still think will be very strong for a Templar core. In any case, it's really impressive to see the first Templar win, particularly overcoming pre-nerf Dracarian Admech. That's about as rough matchups as he can get, so a real credit to the general. I'll certainly be interested to see any other interesting Black Templar tournament lists out there, and I'll try and do another few videos on them on the channel, so feel free to subscribe if you'd like to see that. Finally, I'd just like to quickly mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page, which is how I can afford to make videos like this quite so regularly. It is quite nice to have enough time to make lots of videos about model soldiers, and it is why the channel has quite so many uploads as it does. I'd like to say a massive thank you to the channel patrons who make that possible, and if you'd be interested in supporting yourself, there is a link down in the video description below. I do try and reward channel patrons as much as possible, with things like seeing certain videos early each week, regular votes to see what sort of things come next for the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.